Philippines is prone to hazards, as defined by its location and its natural attributes. Being situated in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the typhoon belt of the western North Pacific Basin, this accounts to the occurrence of earthquake, volcanic eruption, tropical cyclones, and other natural hazards, which also brings secondary phenomenon such as tsunami, landslide, floods, and storm surges. Adding to these threats are the various complex emergencies that are primarily human-induced that also needs to be addressed. Typhoon Haiyan is one of the deadliest natural disasters ever to hit the Philippines. But it's far from the only one. The Calabarzon is located in an area that has been struck by a number of major disasters. Through the years, the country experienced losses, but the efforts to reduce people's vulnerability and strengthening the nation's resilience to disasters grow strong every passing tragedy. The people suffering during disasters and the country's vulnerability and exposure to hazard prompted the government to pass the Republic Act 10121, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act, to increase the resilience of vulnerable communities and to reduce damage and loss of lives and properties in particular. RA 10121 provides for the development of policies and plans and the implementation of actions and measures pertaining to all aspects of DRRM, including good governance, risk assessment and early warning, knowledge building and awareness raising, reducing underlying risk factors, and preparedness for effective response and early recovery. A need to adopt a disaster risk reduction and management approach that is holistic, comprehensive, integrated, and proactive in lessening the socio-economic and environmental impacts of disasters, including climate change, and promote the involvement and participation of all sectors and all stakeholders concerned at all levels, especially the local community. The NDRRMC is chaired by the Secretary of the National Defense and composed of cabinet secretaries and heads of agencies with major contributions to DRRM. The RDRRMC-4A is being chaired by the Office of Civil Defense. It is composed of regional directors and head of officers, agencies in the region. The NDRRMC is replicated in the regional down to the barangay level, thus linking all disaster-related offices and LGUs which have specific roles to play in DRRM. The Office of Civil Defense, OCD, as the implementing arm of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, have the primary mission of administering a comprehensive national civil defense and disaster risk reduction and management program by providing leadership in the continuous development of strategic and systematic approaches, as well as measures to reduce the vulnerabilities and risks to hazards and manage the consequences of disasters. On a daily basis, the Regional DRRM Operations Center is manned and maintained by the OCD. The personnel and resources of the RDRRMC OPSEN are accessible through our standard 24/7. The Office of Civil Defense has been recognized as a leader in training in topics related to disaster risk reduction and management. OCD, a well-known resource center for capacity building of national governments, LGUs, non-government organizations, and community-based organizations. Through its multidisciplinary approach, OCD designed training curricula and conducting training courses in a wide range of disaster management disciplines. Among the trainings, Basic Course on DRRM, Incident Command System or ICS Training Course, Pre-Disaster Risk Assessment PDRA, Rapid Damage Assessment and Needs Analysis, Ardana Course, Post-Disaster Needs Assessment PDNA Course, Contingency Planning Formulation, Simulation Exercise or CIMEX, Community-Based Disaster Risk Reduction and Management or CBDRM training, Medical First Responders Training, Water Search and Rescue or WASAR, Collapse Search and Rescue or CSSR, Urban Search and Rescue or USAR. The Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, chaired by the local chief executive, is primarily tasked to take the lead in the effective delivery of services to the citizenry. It includes 4 distinct yet mutually reinforcing priority areas, namely disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster recovery and rehabilitation. Each priority area has its own long-term goal, which, when put together, will lead to the attainment of a safer, adaptive, and resilient Filipino communities towards sustainable development. The LDRRMCs are mandated to approve, monitor, and evaluate the implementation of the Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Plan, and annually review, test, and develop the plan consistent with other national and local planning programs. Ensure the integration of disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation into local development plans, programs, and budgets as a strategy in sustainable development and poverty reduction. Recommend the implementation of forced or preemptive evacuation of local residents if necessary, and convene once every 3 months or as necessary. The LDRRMC's functions imply that disaster risk reduction must be integral in the day-to-day operations of local government units. Republic Act No. 10121 and its IRR mandate the establishment of Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office or DRRMO in every province, city, and municipality, and a Barangay Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Committee or BDRRMC in every barangay. The Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office is composed of a Local Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Officer, assisted by 3 staff responsible for administration and training, research and planning, and operations and warning. LDRRMCs are also mandated to establish a dedicated Emergency Operations Center or EOC to serve as command center for monitoring, disseminating warning information, and coordinating emergency response activities. Staffed around the clock, the EOC serves as central point of contact for reporting threats and emergencies. Local government units or LGUs should set aside at least 5% of their estimated revenue from regular sources as LDRRM fund to support pre-disaster preparedness programs and post-disaster activities. LGUs are considered as the frontliners and first responders in every disaster event. They take the lead in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from the effects of any disaster. The National Council shall recommend to the President of the Philippines the declaration of a cluster of barangays, municipalities, cities, provinces, and regions under a state of calamity and the lifting thereof based on the criteria set by the National Council. The President's declaration may warrant international humanitarian assistance as deemed necessary. The declaration and lifting of the state of calamity may also be issued by the local sanggunian upon the recommendation of the LDRRMC based on the results of the damage assessment and needs analysis. Local government unit requesting National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund or NDRRMF assistance should submit complete description, justification of the project, or DRRMC damage report, impact assessment report, work and financial plan to include pictures, sanggunian resolution declaring the area under a state of calamity, imminent danger, and appropriating local counterpart for the project, certification by the local chief executive or LCE through a sanggunian resolution assuring that whatever amount will be provided by the Office of the President, the project will be completed. Endorsement of the RDRRMC Chairperson the OCD Regional Director. Certification and justification by the LCE concerned that funding requests chargeable against the NDRRMF are emergency in character. RA 10121 provides a strong legal and institutional basis for DRRM in the country and provided basis for the development of policies and plans, implementation of actions, and measures pertaining to all aspects of DRRM. While much work has been accomplished, we recognize that there is still much to be done. We need to double our efforts for DRR. In tandem with our national and local development and climate change adaptation policies and programs, we need to complement DRR action with the rest of the DRRM spectrum with a more robust system for disaster preparedness and strategic, systematic, and efficient recovery and rehabilitation of communities hit by disasters. The country remains steadfast in its commitment to continue working for safer, sustainable, climate change adaptive, and disaster resilient communities aimed toward building a stronger nation. Your Office of Civil Defense Calabarzon is committed to scale up its work on disaster risk reduction with the aim of helping to prevent, mitigate, and prepare for disaster under the battle cry of RDRRMC 4A. Sariling kaligtasan, pangalagaan, paghandaan.